If you've watched any of my videos thus far, you know that anxiety plays a central focus in my life. You also know I've stated many times that a certain level of anxiety is normal for people. There's nothing controversial or groundbreaking about that statement. Most of us intuitively know that to be the case, and I'm sure we can all think of a moment and recall a time where we were anxious. So, what separates normal anxiety from a disorder? What misconceptions does society have about anxiety disorders? And what can be done if you find yourself on the worst possible side of this topic? Dating back to classical Greece, medical science has long understood that there are people who have increased and irrational levels of fear or apprehension, and attempted to remedy this state of mind with everything from prayer to herbal remedies. It wasn't until DSM-3 in 1980, though, that generalized anxiety disorder and panic disorder diverged into their own unique official classifications. But as my viewers probably know by now, this isn't the History Channel. All of those details are interesting to someone like me, but they don't really dig into the core of the subject or do anything to articulate what life with an anxiety condition is really like. It's not always caused by stress. Some people get it for no reason. I wish people would understand that it's not as simple as being told to calm down. It's not as easy as taking a few deep breaths and everything is fine. I just wish people could understand that this is waking up every single morning with a knot in your stomach and not having a reason why. There is no valid reason why we panic. We just do. There is this notion, which seems to be held by a lot of people, that the difference between my mind and yours is that I'm afraid of more things than you. The reality is more complex than that, though. In the landscape of the mind, there are things which fall into tangible and intangible categories. I'm probably scared of fewer tangible things than most healthy people are. I don't worry about the possibility of getting mugged nearly as much as I worry about the possibility that my next panic attack might be the herald of some new permanent state of mind. In short, I fear myself more than I fear anything. It's not a fear that I'm a ticking time bomb waiting to lash out at others. It's a fear that I'm a time bomb waiting to implode into my own altered state of reality, never to return. Or the fear that I'm one palpitation away from cardiac arrest. And if I got just one view for every person who could identify with what I just said, this would be the most popular video on YouTube. This isn't a rare state of being by a stretch of the imagination. Roughly 20% of the US population and 8% of the UK are estimated to have an anxiety disorder of some kind. Combined, that's over 45 million people in just those two countries alone. Anxiety disorders by themselves are believed to be the most common psychological condition in the world, which makes talking about them even more difficult than you'd expect. Because like most things, they exist on a spectrum, with ranging triggers and differing severity on a person-to-person basis. You could say that anxiety conditions are like DNA in the sense that no two people are identical in their causes, presentations, sometimes even their treatment. While there is some overlap, each case is unique, with some people having profound health anxiety and not caring in the least about social situations, whereas others become complete hermits and couldn't care less about microanalyzing every single little sensation they feel throughout the day. Sometimes there are no discernible triggers at all. The only real rule here is that you frequently find yourself in an irrational state of fear, and while you're there, logic is not your strong suit. Anxiety suffered by those with generalized anxiety disorder is not always connected to stressful situations. My anxiety is 24/7, no matter what's going on in my life. It's been that way for 50 years. Now already you may have noticed two different terms that I've used in this video, one being panic attacks and the other being generalized anxiety disorder. I feel like I should take a moment to explain the differences here, and it really boils down to the fact that generalized anxiety disorder focuses more on actual life circumstances, your job, money, friends, and so forth, whereas panic disorder focuses more on the type of attack you're having. For example, a panic attack is generally much more severe than an anxiety attack, but it typically lasts for a shorter amount of time. On top of that, there's also the proclivity panic disorder sufferers have to bring on a panic attack simply because of the fear of having another attack. Yet another thing that I'm going to say, which should surprise absolutely no one, is that it is possible, even frequent, for people to deal with both issues simultaneously. You see, diagnoses are a tricky business because of overlapping symptoms. Because we're learning how the human mind doesn't have any particular desire to conform itself into a neat little box. Which is why modern psychology and competent therapists no longer treat to a diagnosis, they strive to treat your symptoms. But treatment in and of itself is a bit of a crapshoot, as anywhere from 10 to 40% of those suffering from these disorders aren't helped in any significant way by medication or therapy. It doesn't take a genius to figure out the desperation that can cause. No one wants to be like this. Despite what some might believe, This isn't just something I made up to get out of social situations. Believe me, I've never really had any problem telling people I just don't want to hang out with them, that I don't feel like coming to Thanksgiving. My life has long since stopped being a popularity contest where I'm trying to hide the fact that I am, in fact, just another flawed human being. What I want, and what a lot of us want, is just a return to the eras in which just not wanting to do something was our sole reason for not doing it. My anxiety started when I was a child. I had a high degree of social anxiety from the time I was in elementary school, and despite a whole lot of therapy over the years, not one professional ever diagnosed it, something that now I can pretty much look at a person and tell that they have it. My childhood social interactions were extremely awkward, right up until the point where I did what a lot of teens with mental health issues do: drugs. A lot of drugs. And they helped to a point. I made friends, I eventually got a job, and then one day I did the wrong drug. And the social anxiety that I had turned into HPPD, PTSD, and an acute panic disorder. I'm not going to list off my symptoms here because I know that there are a lot of people who are going to be watching this video that would only get anxious from hearing them. But I will say that they have historically been so horrific that I don't even really have social anxiety that much anymore. What I dealt with as a child, the anxiety that defined and limited every relationship I had, and could have had but didn't, the thing that compelled me to drop out of school, doesn't even remotely come close to what I've dealt with for the last 2 decades of my life. You've heard the saying of something being in the same ballpark. This is barely even the same sport anymore. When a person experiences a state of heightened anxiety, they're slipping into what's known as a fight or flight response. It's an evolutionary response to perceived threats, and what it ultimately amounts to is your body's way of preparing itself to either fight against a threat or run from it. Both of those in the most physical sense of the words. It starts with your brain releasing a flow of neurotransmitters into your body. Signals get sent out in every direction. One of the main points of this process is to get as much oxygenated blood flowing through your body as possible. Another is to increase your general state of alertness, which is great if you're about to be chased by a wolf. Less so if you're trying to sleep. It's issues like that where having an anxiety disorder really starts to take a toll on you. Another popular misconception out there is that mental health problems remain isolated to just your mind. However, I feel like pretty much anyone can figure out pretty quickly, or at least take the 5 minutes on the internet to figure out that a lack of sleep has very real physical ramifications, especially over time. What isn't commonly known is that prolonged anxiety disorders lead to an entire host of physical conditions, from various pain disorders to cardiovascular issues and so forth. The other place anxiety issues, like all mental health issues, take a toll on you is your interpersonal relationships. This may come as a shock to you, but society is not actually very nice to people with mental health issues. The worse you have it, the more cruel they will be. Twice as much so if you're a celebrity. Look what American society did to Britney Spears if you want some context there. Something most of us deal with is the notion espoused by some that we're just not doing enough to get over our issues. There seems to be this belief out there that the state of a person's mental health is somehow tied to a switch that can be flipped on or off. And the point of therapy or medication is to flip said switch. This is an extremely tragic, damaging, and demeaning misconception. The brain is a very complex organ, one that we barely have the first clue how it operates. We know enough to know that everyone is different, everyone is unique. And that uniqueness causes complications in how people are treated. Right now, the go-to treatments for anxiety disorders are SSRIs and cognitive behavioral therapy, both of which can be extremely effective for a lot of people. And I would encourage everyone with any kind of mental health issues to look into them if you haven't already. Most of us have, though. And yet, we still have mental health issues, because ultimately, while there might be treatments, there are no cures. But there is hope. Most people with anxiety disorders live relatively normal lives. While their anxiety might ebb and flow, they usually have more days where they are functional than not. And even those like myself who have more difficulties functioning than most, still find some contentment and purpose in life, hence what I'm doing right now. Ultimately, we all have our own unique limitations, and life is about trying to make the most of our lives within the confines of those limitations. People with anxiety disorders do that just as much as the next person, despite the ever-present reality that an attack can be paralyzing. Some of us can't leave our homes, can't drive or work, but all of us are fighting every single day. Some of us are fighting for a better life, and some of us are fighting just to hang on to the lives we already have. It takes courage to wake up in a fog every morning knowing that you will face fear today, and then get out of bed anyway. And I hope that everyone with an anxiety disorder who's watching this video and dreams of a day where they can face those fears head on recognizes that you are already braver than you think. So thanks for watching. I hope you found this video to be at least somewhat informative. I try to cover a lot of ground in these videos, and I'll apologize for not getting to everything. If you like this video, feel free to hit that magic subscribe button and give me some encouragement to keep doing these. I try to release a video every week, although admittedly my own mental health issues are telling me that I should probably take a week off every so often. But I'm not going to, so until next time.